Donald Trump, and the reason you didn't see Elon Musk there is that much of his response has been on social media. He's been typing his responses. Well, shares in Elon Musk's electric vehicle from Tesla plunged more than 14% in the wake of his row with Donald Trump. The company has lost around $150 billion in value in a matter of hours. Analysts said that the 14% plunge represents such a dramatic drop. It suggests Tesla is now tethered to public and investor sentiments towards Elon Musk. They say that that can be good when things are going his way, but as we've seen this week, it can be very damaging to the stock if he has the kind of meltdown that we've been witnessing. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the Republican strategist and chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. Great to see you, Greg.
You too, Charles.
Let's face it, it was probably inevitable that this bromance would turn sour, but did you expect it to go this bad, this fast?
No, Charles, and if you recall, you asked me that question last night, and I said, oh, no, this is not a big breakup. It's just a little speed bump. But that was at 6 o'clock British summertime, and a few hours later, this thing erupted into a kind of a nuclear incident. And so I'm clearly getting out of the prediction business, Charles, because things got much uglier than I expected. So good for you for asking the hard questions. But I have to say, you know, it's already turned around. This is classic President Trump drama. He does something provocative. He's unorthodox. And then he's thinking about the end game. He's thinking about the outcomes. The media, much of the U.S. media and the radical left freak out about it, whatever he's talking about. And then sometimes it's 3 hours later, sometimes it's 3 days later, 3 weeks later, everything works out. And so I think this will work out. They've already indicated that they might have a, kiss and make up meeting today. And I think the president will be speaking to the press sometime this evening.
Well, the president did say that he'd changed his mind about talking to Elon Musk on the phone. But I mean, you are, I have to say, a very good predictor of things, generally speaking. I mean, can it really be...
Not last night.
Well, I mean, I don't think a lot of people predicted what was going to happen either. Can it really be just a tax spending bill that has caused this implosion?
Yeah, that's a great question, and probably not. There's some other things going on there. I think there was some tension between Elon Musk and other people in the administration, even though he seemed to get along quite well with the president. And so there was some tension there. You have Elon's companies quite dependent on inputs from China, and that's really in many ways in conflict with President Trump's, aversion to China and his criticisms of China over the last 10 years. And then, of course, you have the electric vehicle mandates and subsidies that are going to be removed from U.S. law with this new bill. So, there might be some of that, although, Elon Musk's criticisms of the bill are welcome in conservative circles. I've had the same kind of criticisms, but the reality is the president has to pass what he can pass. The Congress is very equally divided. We, the Republicans, only have a 3-seat majority in the House, and then a 3-seat majority in the Senate. So, this is a very difficult bill to pass, and it's not. I hear a lot of talk about tax and spend. It's actually lowering tax and reducing spending. Is it reducing spending enough for my taste? No, but I also understand that not one Democrat will vote for this bill because of the reduction in spending. And so we have to take what we can get. We have to take what we can pass. And it's really important to pass this bill because it does keep taxes lower, as well as deregulating in the economy and also reducing spending.
And I mean, how concerning is it, Greg, that Elon Musk is making allegations about the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, is it something that needs to be looked into further and investigated?
I'm not sure it could be looked into further because it's been so well investigated. And of course, I think it was just a temper tantrum from from Elon. Anything that would be damaging to President Trump in the files, the Epstein files, surely would have been leaked by now. The Democrats have done everything over the last 8 years, but especially in the last 4, with the lawsuits and the weaponization of the justice system, all of the horrible things they tried with President Trump. They surely would have leaked that. And I cannot imagine there'd be anything in there that we don't already know. And remember, President Trump learned about Jeffrey Epstein 20 years ago and had him thrown out of his own country club at Mar-a-Lago. So the president's been pretty clear on that. And I think that would demonstrate that he's got a clean slate as far as Epstein goes.
And I mean, is it important to also understand why Elon Musk continues to say that he was the one that gave and delivered the Trump presidency?
Yeah. Again, I think that's just temper tantrum. Yes, did he help? Absolutely. There's no doubt that Elon, when he came on board, in early 2024, it was really good news. It wasn't even early. It was actually in July, after the assassination attempt. We felt like that was great news. Not only did he bring a lot of cash into the campaign, but he also put his resources to work. He was able to bring a lot of younger people, the so-called tech bros from Silicon Valley. So I thought that was really great news. And yeah, he should get some credit. However, President Trump won by a much more comfortable margin than anybody assumed. Was Elon part of that? Of course. But I think he would have won anyway. I think that's pretty clear, given that he won all 7 swing states and the popular vote. So, I'm not sure Elon's got a great argument there, but I do give him credit for his contributions.
And is it a good thing that Elon Musk, an unelected official who came to be at the heart of America's government, is now gone?
Well, I think it was always meant to be temporary, Charles. And remember, the entire administration and White House is unelected. The only elected officials are the president and the vice president. So, that's not unusual to have a senior person like Elon Musk. Of course, he's unelected. He reports to the president. The president is elected. That's how it works. What we often criticize is unelected bureaucrats that are just part of this massive big state bureaucracy who are permanent employees and are not appointed by the executive. So I think it's a little confusing because we use the term often, and I'm guilty of it, of complaining about unelected bureaucrats, but they're not political appointees. They are permanent bureaucracy in Washington and tend to be around 90% Democrats. So that makes it a little bit difficult for Republicans to get anything done. So now in Elon's case, he was appointed by the president. He did a great job with Doge. I think Doge will continue to do a great job. It's something that a lot of Republicans like me have talked about for generations and never really do anything about it. So it was refreshing to see some action in Washington.
And of course, as you and I have discussed previously, I mean, you don't always agree, but I mean, I put it to you in a way that Donald Trump can be very vengeful. I mean, do you reckon that he'll go ahead and cancel those federal contracts and all the subsidies that Tesla has been getting?
Charles, you're right. I mean, the president punches back. He's not afraid to punch back. And some of that can be, difficult for, traditional diplomatic type politicians to understand. But he can also kiss and make up. And he's had, and you think about his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was a very big critic of Trump back in and ran against him in the election in 2016 in the primaries. Even J.D. Vance was quite critical of the president. So no, yes, he can punch back, but yes, he's very good at keeping relationships. Even people he's fired, he has close relationships with. And with some people, he doesn't. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. He's a founder. He's a businessman. He's not afraid to make hard decisions. But I think in this case, there's a great potential they get back together in terms of their relationship. What's most important is the bill, and I think any criticisms from Elon Musk are welcome. Actually, we like that kind of debate, and you've got a handful of senators right now that are looking at this bill. It passed through the House, but then it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate has to make their changes to it, send it back to the House, and then it goes to the president's desk. I think there's a handful of senators, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, Tim Scott from Florida, who's both really active and great senators. They are really fed up with the reckless spending, and I think they're going to cut more out of that bill. And if Elon is encouraging that, and they feel some support from him, regarding additional spending cuts, good for him.
That's a very good point you make there. And I mean, you are, of course, Greg, in London, which is the heart of the other side of the world across the pond. Are you concerned that the world is watching and that all this could affect America's stand globally?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's something that we think about, and here in London, if anything, there's kind of Trump envy here, or America envy. After the election, a lot of the people here who are supporting reform, who are still supporting the Conservative Party, the conservative parties of the UK have actually improved in terms of their polling. And so you have reform at 30, 31, you have the Conservative Party, somewhere around in the high teens. Combined, they're surely outpolling the parties of the left. The problem here is we don't have an election until 2029, and you've got a Labor government that's pretty hostile to business and hostile in terms of the regulatory and tax burden. But there's a lot of envy. A lot of people that reach out to me wish they could have some of the policies that President Trump is advocating. So I think, there's moments where the media really focuses on the drama. And so all I've been talking about all day in UK media is President Trump's spat with Elon Musk. But that's not always the case. And I think, hopefully we'll get back to business. And I should mention one more thing, Charles. Talk about the relationship and what we call the special relationship between the US and the UK. Despite all this drama in the last 24 hours, the United States announced a security and defense tech security pact with the United Kingdom. They waited till today because it's the anniversary of D-Day. I think it's the 86th. Don't quote me on that, but it's roughly maybe the 81st anniversary of D-Day. So this is a big moment for U.S.-UK relations, given the historic anniversary that we have on June 6th every year.
And presumably, all across America, Democrats are getting comfortable in their sort of living rooms, calling for the popcorn and rubbing their hands in glee.
Yeah, I think, look, this is a distraction. 3 days ago, we were talking about the great cover-up of Biden, Joe Biden's cognitive issues. We were talking about these tell-all books that are coming out now about the cover-up. And so, as a partisan, I wish we were talking about that like we were for the last 3 weeks. Unfortunately, this becomes a distraction, and the media really focuses on it, at least for a couple of days. But again, it's kind of the formula. The media and the Democrats, jump all over a particular issue or an incident, and 2 or 3 days later, maybe it's 2 or 3 weeks later, it goes away. President cares about outcomes, and if he gets the outcomes that are beneficial for Americans, the economy, wage growth, I think everybody will be pretty happy with the president. That's why he's polling much better than even Barack Obama was at this point in his second term. And that's saying something, because Barack Obama was a very popular president.
And finally, Greg, I mean, I know you were talking about days or weeks, but where do you see this row going? I mean, do you think it's going to continue to escalate?
Yeah, well, given my complete miss last night, Charles, I'm hesitant to say, but I honestly do think that you've already seen some kind of kissing and making up today. Elon Musk reached out to the White House. I'm not sure if they're going to talk, but that was the original plan. So look, I think even Elon Musk was dialing it down a bit with his most recent tweets or X statements last night. So I'm pretty optimistic. And the reason I'm optimistic is, look, they're two very successful, very, in many ways, provocative people. That's one of the reasons they're so successful. They're bound to clash a little bit, but they have so much at stake here. You saw, as you said at the beginning of the show, Charles, Tesla stock was down 18% at one point. It rallied back to down 14. I'm not sure how it's done today, but that's $150 billion worth of market cap. So I think that, we're really, and we're optimistic that both the president and Elon Musk will understand that there's bigger things at stake than their personal differences. And they agree on 90% of the issues. So it's just this small sliver of disagreement. And also, Elon Musk has a lot of exposure with the U.S. right now. President Trump has some exposure in the sense that Elon Musk's SpaceX and other companies are really important to U.S. defense and security. So there's just too much upside here for the two of them, and I hope they do it quickly.
Greg, I want to thank you very much indeed. We always
My
appreciate
pleasure.
your analysis. Greg
Thanks,
Swenson
Charles.
is the Republican strategist and chair of Republicans Overseas UK. He was talking to me on the line there from London.